Here we are on the front of our Grand Design Imagine 22 MLE. We're going to be doing a technical walkthrough like you would get with the technician on the day delivery, going through and touching on each component, giving you a few tips and tricks along the way. Your unit for this floor plan may vary in brand name components. Most of it's going to be the same, but if you want a deeper dive on these components or the components that you have, you can find that on our YouTube channel under the playlist Haps Helpful Hacks. Make sure you hit subscribe to our channel and hit like. We're going to go ahead and get started here in the front. Now here in the front we have our 7-way plug. It's going to transfer all of our lights, our turn signals, all that. We're also going to have a battery charge line that transfers 12-volt charging power off of our alternator to our battery on our trailer to help keep that battery charged while we're traveling. And then we're also going to have our brake control line that's going to activate our brakes when we hit our pedal on our towing vehicle. Now also here we're going to have this lanyard. This needs to hook on where your safety chains hook on that receiver hitch. That way if anything were to ever fault with our chains or our hitch themselves, this pin will pull out of that breakaway box right there and it will activate the brakes on our trailer. Now it can only happen if we have a good 12-volt battery, meaning we have power on our trailer. Because it comes disconnected from that towing vehicle, it would have to have its own separate source. So if we don't have a good 12-volt battery, that system is not going to work. So the other thing we need to check is making sure that pin is inserted in that box completely while we're traveling, so we don't have to be concerned about the brakes being active while we are actually going down the road. Also in the front here we have our 12-volt jack. We'll see a power line right here. When we follow that, we'll generally have an inline fuse on that system, and it'll lead us to our battery. Now on this jack is 12 volts supplied. If our battery is dead, it's not going to work. If that fuse is blown, it's not going to work. So those are two places you can look if this system isn't working. If you can't figure it out, you can pull this black plug on the top, put your crank handle in here and manually operate that jack to get you out of a jam. Behind that we have our 2 propane tanks. Those propane tanks are operated by a dual propane regulator. We'll have a switch on there. We choose which tank we want to be our primary. We have them both on. It will pull from that primary tank until it runs dry, at which time that indicator will turn red, letting you know that primary tank is empty, but it will automatically swap over and start pulling from that secondary tank. We can go over to that selector switch, move it to our secondary tank. The indicator on there will tell you whether it's full or empty or in between, and we can go ahead and get our other tank filled or replaced. Behind that, we have our rack for our battery system on the trailer. On our driver's side, we have our pass-through storage bay along with our Furrion control center for our solar system. That is going to convert our solar power to charging power for our battery if your unit is fully equipped with that system. We also are going to have our LCI tire link pre-wired in here. If we want to buy that monitor and the sensors to go on the tires, we can have that set up so we monitor our tires while we're traveling. Also have a switch in there with our lights. For our pass-through bay, we'll notice a little sensor right here. Whenever we close those doors on both sides, those lights will turn off. They'll kick back on when we open that door. We're also going to have our control center right there. We'll go over a closer look at that right now. All right, we have our control center. We see here we have our Lippert tire link system. If we want to purchase the monitor and the sensors to have installed on here, the power is already ran. We just need to hook that up and we can monitor our tires while we're traveling down the road. Here's our battery disconnect. It does just that. We turn it off and it disconnects the battery from our camper. And that allows us to hold a charge on that battery if we store our unit unplugged. That way we have some power left when we go to hook it back up. We can run that jack and everything. Whenever we store our unit plugged in or if we're camping, we want that system on so the converter system, which is the battery charging system, will charge that battery while you're camping. Up here we have our coax connections, satellite cable and auxiliary. Satellite, that's if we have a satellite set up outside. All of this stuff runs into the interior of our unit. Our cable is if we have cable hookup at the campground. Auxiliary is if you have anything else you want to plug in to reach out to the rest of the unit. GFCI protected outlet right here. We'll talk a little bit more about GFCIs when we get inside. We have our city water connection. If you have that water bib at the campsite or wherever you're camping, you can hook it up right here, turn that water on, and it will go into all of your faucets and fixtures inside the unit. If you care to fill your tank, you would want to turn this valve right here to tank fill. You can fill that onboard storage from right here, or we can do a gravity fill. When we get to that point on the unit, I'll show you where that is. We can do that gravity fill, or we can fill it pressurized from our faucet. When we want to use this as a regular city water connection, we do need to make sure we have that valve turned down to city. Of course, we have a quick connect right here, hot and cold, for that coiled hose. We can hook up for a spray port at the door. Down below our pass-through bay, you're going to notice our stabilizer jack. We have one on all four corners of the unit. They all have a weight rating on them, and they are well below the weight of the trailer. These are not meant to level out our unit, simply stabilize them to reduce movement in that trailer. So how do we level our unit? Well, we put stacker blocks under the tires and level it left to right depending on the slope of the pad. And then we also use our ton jack in the front to level it from front to back. Once we have our unit level, we can go ahead and drop these stabilizer jacks down. We want to try to keep them in that nice diamond shaped form. That will be the most efficient way to use these and do the best job at helping stabilize your unit. If we have them straight up and down, they are more likely going to be overweight and bend and break at the welds. Manufacturers are not going to participate in that kind of repair, so we need to make sure we're using these properly. So when we crank them down on those blocks or even on the solid ground, just put a little bit of tension on them. We don't want to lift the camper off the ground or anything like that. Just some tension on that stabilizer jack so it can do its job. We're going to notice there on the side of the slide out a little vent. That vent is for over our stove top, that hood range. In order for it to ventilate out, the tabs would have to be open on there in order for it to ventilate out. We would also want to go ahead and close those off when we store our unit so no insects can build any nests if we wish. On the rear driver's side of our unit, we have our Furrion tankless water heater. Needing 12 volts to operate, it's going to use gas to heat that water on there. We'll go over the controls on how that operates when we hit the inside. Down here, we're also going to have our rear stab jack, and then we're going to have two valves. One is our gray, one is our black, controlling our two tanks, and then we have our port for our sewage as well, and our slide out. Our slide out is a Schwintek slide. If you want more information on that particular slide out, we have that in the Helpful Hacks video. Let's talk about our sewer system, our black and our gray. Gray is going to be just shower and sink water that goes into that tank. Black is going to be our sewage from our toilet. Now, as long as you have a port at the campsite where you're at, you can leave your gray tank open all the time and just let that drain out so you don't have to come out and drain out every couple of showers. Our black tank, however, needs to stay closed. We have sewage, solids, stuff going in there. We want to make sure that it stays closed so it contains water and that stuff doesn't dry up and get stuck in our tank. So keep that black valve closed until we're ready to dump. Proper procedure for dumping is having our line hooked up, pull that black tank valve, let everything drain out of that system. Then we're going to take a hose, hook it up to that black tank flush. We'll turn that hose on, and that is a jet port on the other side of the tank that's going to help push anything that's left down over to this valve and let it drain out. Once you're satisfied, you turn off that black tank flush, disconnect your hose, come over here, shut your valve on your black tank system, go to your toilet on the inside, hold that pedal down and add several gallons of fresh water to that system. And we want to make sure that we have water in there all the time because there's still going to be a little bit of debris in there and stuff. And then add our chemicals in there to help break down anything that might be left. And while you're traveling down the road, that's going to help wash out your tank a little bit more as well. We always want to make sure we're doing that no matter what, because we don't want to get that stuff stuck in our black tank. So black tank valve closed all the time, gray tank, you can leave it open as long as you're hooked up. On the rear of our unit, we are pre-wired for our Furrion backup camera system. When we turn our running lights on our towing vehicle, running lights will come on the camper and supply power to that backup camera so you can see behind you while you're traveling or while you're backing up. If you want to upgrade to that option, it's a really easy install. We also have our factory supplied ladder back here. That is very important because we need to gain access to our roof. We need to get up there because we need to check those sealants every 60 to 90 days up there, as well as all our sidewalls, around our ladder, our windows, our trim, our lights, everything, everywhere where there is sealant, to make sure there's no cracking, peeling, or deterioration of that sealant. If so, we need to clean it and reseal it right away. Manufacturers will not participate in any repairs after the first 90 days if we're not maintaining our unit. That means making sure that sealant is good so we're not letting any water leaks get into our unit and damage our stuff. Very important we stay on top of this. If you don't, you're going to end up with water damage, and we don't want that, all right? So make sure you're getting that done. We also need to climb up on our roof, wash that rubber at least once or twice a year, and check it after trips to make sure no low-lying tree limbs have scraped and poked holes in our rubber. So make sure we're maintaining all that stuff. Over here we have our gas Suburban furnace right here. That is operated from our thermostat on the inside. We'll talk about that in a little while. We also have our bumper, the plastic caps on the ends. We can pull those off. put that sewer hose in there if we want to store it in there. And we have our 30 amp twist lock plug right here. Put that in, turn it to the right to lock it in. We have that little retainer ring on there. We want to go ahead and tighten that up. That way when kids are running around, that doesn't accidentally get yanked out. And we can make sure that we plug this in first, then plug it into your shore power at the campsite so we can reduce any arcing at this plug right here. We also want to make sure that our ACs are off whenever we plug in and unplug our system so we're not causing any unwanted surges to our AC system. Also down below our bumper, we're going to see a red and blue line sticking out with some valves. Those are our low point drains. That's used for winterization. If you want more information on that, you can find it in your owner's manual as well as a video on Hap's Helpful Hacks. On the passenger side, of course we have more access to our pass-through bay right there, as well as another stabilizer jack. We also have our 12-volt awning with 12-volt powered awning lights underneath. All that stuff will be controlled by our 12-volt system. We do have inline fuses for that, all in one spot near our breaker panel. We can go there, check the labels, and see what they operate. In the event that they're not operating, we can go ahead and check that label to see if one of these items is on it. Now, our awning is meant to be a sunshade. You're going to get light dew on there, light rain, stuff like that, and also maybe some AC condensation as well during the hot summer. One thing we need to make sure we do is lean our awning to the front or the rear. Very easy to do. Come over to either our front arm or our rear arm. Both of them are going to operate the same. Grab that arm right there at this pivot point, pull down, and now we've pitched our awning so water can run off of it. We don't want it to settle in the middle of that awning. It can collapse if enough water gets on there. Ready to retract our awning, we simply just push back up. We can retract our awning and we're good to go. Now, if you have a storm come in, wind, rain, whatever it may be, roll that awning in because it will get ripped off and that'll become an expensive insurance claim you don't want to have to deal with. Also, if you're leaving your camper for an extended period of time, roll it in because you never know what's going to come around while you're out. Under our awning, we're going to see our gravity fill for our fresh tank system. You can remove this cap, stick a water hose in there, and that will fill up your fresh tank. We also have that option in the front, both the same tank. Now, the thing about your tank is we add water to it, it is going to add more weight to our units. We have to decide whether or not how much water we want to carry with us, how much we're going to actually need. If we want to drain any of that out due to either weight or we don't need it anymore because that water will become stagnant after a while, we have a white valve underneath here. We pull that valve right there and that will drain out our system. Behind me, we have our 110 GFCI protected outlet as well as our outdoor cable hookup for that outside TV. On the rear of our unit, we have a quick connect port for that blue coiled hose we have in the front. We can have another spray port out here as well as our black tank flush valve right there to be able to flush out that black tank sewage system. Down underneath this J-wrap right here, we're going to see a quick connect for a propane system down on the frame. We can go ahead and hook up a quick connect for an outdoor grill if we wish. On our entry door, we are going to notice some resistance when we open and close that door. That's our friction controlled hinges doing the work there. That's so the wind won't slam that door shut. Also, kids, whichever one is your nuisance, that will stop it from happening. We also have a latch here on the back if we want to go ahead and latch it, keep it from swinging around as well. You're going to have your entry steps right here, really simple to use. Got 3 pivot points. We'll go ahead and put it and store it right there, ready for travel to pull it out. Grab that bar there, grab this bar here, and we're ready to go. We want to lubricate these hinge points with silicone spray, not WD-40. That attracts more dirt while you're traveling down the road. And if we see any rust or paint chipping off, I want to go ahead and jump on top of that, repaint it right away. That way it doesn't continue to occur. Here to the left of our entertainment center, we're going to see our Furrion radio system, which has radio options as well as Bluetooth to control our speakers on the inside and outside. Down below that, we have our control center that will allow you to see the level of all of your tank systems, your battery level as well. And you have this Bluetooth connect button that you can connect if you download that Compass Connect app from Grand Design. And you can see some of these items on here and operate a few of them too. We're going to have our ceiling lights on here as well as our exterior lights for our awning. And we're going to see a water pump switch right here as well. That water pump is going to pull from that fresh tank system that we have, and it will supply water to our fixtures if we don't have a city water connection. If we do want that water pump system off, that way it doesn't apply pressure to it the entire time when it's not needed. If you hear that water pump running all the time, keep in mind this is an on-demand system. If your water is running, that pump is going to be on. When your water's off, that pump should be off. If you hear it running all the time, either you have a leak in your system or that fresh tank is empty. We need to turn that off and investigate that we don't burn up that pump. Down here we have our awning and our slide out controls. For your ceiling lights, you will have a switch right by that entry door with a little slide on it. That slide switch will control the dimness of our lights on the interior. Not too much to go over. In our bedroom, we do have our privacy curtain, storage under the bed, USB and 110 outlets in the cubby holes. Our recliners over here do have the massaging seats, the lights, as well as the heated seats right there too, manually controlled to be able to recline. We have our entertainment center over our dinette booth. Whenever we pull that back, we'll see up on the top ceiling portion up in there, you're going to see that coax plate where our coaxes are for our antenna and cable. When we are searching for antenna channels, we need to make sure that little button on there is depressed and that light is on. That helps boost the antenna so you can pick up more air channels in that area. When we're hooked up to cable at the campground, we need to make sure that light is off. Real easy to do, just hit that button, light turns off, and you are good to go so it won't scramble the channels on the cable. In our kitchen, we'll have our 12-volt Furrion refrigerator. You have a little dial right there on the right-hand side, and the refrigerator portion goes from off to cold to cooler, and then we also have an off-grid option. Off-grid option is if we are boondocking, we don't have a shore power, we're pulling it off of just our 12-volt battery, then we can go ahead and go to that off-grid option and it will slow down the work of that compressor. Now we do need to keep in mind that we want to reduce the amount of times we're opening and closing that fridge because that compressor is not going to be working as hard to keep everything cold in there. So keep that in mind. For both our fridge and our freezer, there are no drain tubes in this system, so that water is going to be contained in there once it defrosts. So when we go to store our unit, we shut this system down. We need to defrost that freezer, get all the water out of that system, and wipe down our fridge. Number one, so it doesn't leak and damage any of the wood components around this fridge, and also to reduce risk for mold and mildew. Behind that, we have our 110 microwave, our hood range over our 3-burner stove. Remember the vent we talked about outside? That needs to be open in order for it to ventilate out, closed when you store it so no insects build nests. That would be that right there. We have our 3-burner cooktop, glass cover. That glass cover is for more counter space. It should also be like this when we travel. When we cook, we want to go ahead and flip that up, gain access to our burners. We want to have our propane tanks on. Come over here, turn to our flame icon on our designated burner, and just crank away until it lights. We'll notice that these knobs light up red to let you know that gas is being emitted out of the system. Great for if kids like to play with things, you'll know when it's on. And then we also have a switch over here on the side that everything lights up red. Your knobs will still, lights up blue. All your knobs will still turn red. Flip it down, it'll do the knobs and your oven down below. Now, an important tip about our gas system is that you can end up with air in your lines. This can happen after you stored your unit with your tanks turned off, which is perfectly normal. Most people turn them off whenever they store it. When you turn it back on, you're going to end up with air trapped in that system. It can also happen whenever we change our tanks out. So the way we go ahead and fix that issue is we come over to our stove and we just light it. We turn our tanks on, come over, light it up. It may take a little bit of time for it to finally light, but you go ahead and light it up and you're done. You go through your camping trip, you won't have to do it again until you store your unit again, turn those valves off, or replace that tank. We want to do that before we operate things like our water heater or our furnace, because otherwise it will go into a fault mode due to air in that system. So it's a good idea just to go to your stove, light it up first before we go operate and everything else. Down below we do have our stove down at the bottom, slightly different operation for that. That knob is all the way to the right. We turn it to the flame icon and we need to keep pushing this button down in order for that pilot to light. Keep cranking it, it lights. We need to let it run for about 30 to 60 seconds before we let our hand off to make sure that that pilot is lit and warmed up. Once it's done, we go ahead and pull off, we turn to our designated temperature, and we should see that burner tube go ahead and light up from there. Just outside of our bathroom, we're going to see our LP detector. That's going to let us know if we have any LP leaks in our unit that get inside. If it goes off, we want to go ahead and evacuate the unit. We also want to test that before we go on camping trips or on a regular basis to make sure that that alarm system is working. And notice a little green light on there and telling you that it is powered up. It is hardwired into our battery system, and it also is going to have an expiration date on it to let you know when it needs to be changed out. We're also going to have smoke and CO detectors up on the ceiling powered by those 9-volt batteries. You need to check those regularly and check the alarm system on it as well. Behind me here, we're also going to have our 110 12-volt system. Our 12-volt fuses right here, like we talked about outside, all labeled, as well as our 110 breakers all labeled as well, so we can go there and find out what they operate. If in the event that something's not working, we can go check there. You're also probably going to hear a little fan running around in that area. That is our converter. That converter is basically a battery charger. When you're plugged into shore power, it's going to be charging the battery on our unit and keeping it charged up. Little fan runs just to go ahead and keep it cool, so it's perfectly normal to hear that. Before we enter our bathroom, of course, we have our Furrion thermostat that's going to control our cool for the AC and our heat from our furnace, and our Furrion tankless water heater. We'll go over the operation of both of those right now. Here we have our thermostat for our Furrion air conditioner system. To turn it on, we'll hold down that power mode button and our display will light up. And the first mode that we're going to talk about is our cool mode. Just like your AC at home, we're going to set our temperature, and we have a variety of fan options. We have auto, we have low, and we have high. Auto will turn that fan off whenever the compressor turns off, much like you want at home. If we want that, we want it on auto. High or low will keep that fan running all the time, whether that compressor is on or off, and it will continue to circulate air throughout our unit. Our next mode is our heat mode. This is for our gas furnace. Our gas furnace will initiate when it hits that set point, and the air is going to come out of the vents in our floor, not our rooftop air. Once that system has reached its set point, the system will turn off. There is no difference in the fan speeds on here. There's only one fan speed on a furnace, so pushing this button isn't going to change anything for your furnace. Fan. Fan is just going to circulate air throughout your unit. It's not going to cool it. We still have those options for high and low speed for that system. Our next mode is our dry mode. Our dry mode works as a dehumidifier without freezing you out of the unit. It will cool the unit down to the set point that you have it, so in this case 71 degrees, and it will alternate running and shutting off to try to help keep the air dry inside your unit without reducing that temperature down any further. When we're ready to shut that system off, we hold that mode power button on and that system will shut off. Below it we have our Furrion water heater system. We have our power indicator light right here. That means that system is on. If we want to shut it off, just hit that button one more time. We can see that every icon on here is off. Turning that system on will display everything. Of course, we have our set temperature right here. To reduce or increase that temperature, we'll hit our arrows on the side and it will set in. F and C right here represent Fahrenheit and Celsius for our temperature reading. If we want to change it to Celsius or Fahrenheit, we hit that button right there. We also have a flame icon right here. This will indicate when that water heater is actually running. So if we turn our hot water on, that flame indicator is going to turn on and that system is operational. To turn our system off, once again, we hold down that button right there and it will shut off. On the roof here, you're going to see your AC assembly right there for that Furrion AC. We're going to see our return vent with a filter on it. We need to clean that every now and again. That way we're not restricting the airflow to our AC and it can work efficiently. We also have one more vent right here that you can open and close. When we open it, it's going to be a quick dump. So it's just going to cool off this area right here a little bit quicker. When we close it, that air stops flowing out of here and it starts flowing through our ceiling ducts right here throughout our entire unit. In our bathroom, pretty cut and dry, except for our shower, slightly different. In the RV, you're going to have an on-off valve right here on the shower head. That's used for when we are dry camping. We don't have a port for our gray water system, or we are utilizing the water out of our fresh tank system, or both. We're trying to conserve that water in the tank and pulling out of our fresh. And easy thing, while we're taking a shower, in between lathering up and rinsing off, we can just hit that shower head right here and turn it off rather than having to mess with the hot cold over here and find that sweet spot for the hot water again. It's just an easy fix. If you have your hookup and you have city water, use away, no problem there. If you don't want to use it, you certainly don't have to. We're also going to have that vent in here for the shower. We want to kick that on when we take a shower and reduce opportunity for mold and mildew by getting that heat and humidity out of here. Our toilet system, we talked about that. That goes down to our black tank. We want to make sure we're only putting number 1 and number 2 in there, liquids and solids, as well as our RV only toilet paper that will degrade properly, and our chemicals, all right? So number 1, we just hit that pedal, flush away, no problem. Number 2, we're putting solids in there. Before we start, we want to go ahead and barely depress that pedal, fill that bowl up about half to 3/4 of the way. That way when we go to flush those solids, we'll have enough water in that system actually push them down into that black tank. Beyond that, once again, just your toilet paper and just your chemicals. In here, we're also going to have our GFCI outlet right here. All the outlets around your unit that have a little label that's saying GFCI protected, which is most of them. We're going to come over here in the event that they're not working and check and see if this needs to be reset. Do have a little green light on there indicating that everything is okay. If that green light is off, that system is tripped. You have 2 buttons on there. One's test button, one's a reset button. Test button is just going to trip it. Reset button actually resets that system. Now, this happens whenever we have too many griddles, coffee pots, so on and so forth plugged into those outlets. It can overamp that system and trip it. It can also happen if those outlets are wet. So if you come over here and reset it right off the bat, it trips, then we need to go unplug some of those items or check those outlets, make sure that they're not wet, and then come try to reset it again.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.